Morning. Hi, puppy. Oh, hello. Have a good one. What if the way that you see reality isn't entirely accurate? What if everything you believe to be true is actually just an illusion? There's a concept called naive realism. Naive realism is the illusion that your subjective reality is actually objective. In other words, it is the mistaken belief that the way that you see the world is the way the world actually is. For example, when you look at these mountains, the way you see them will vary drastically depending on your life experience. Personally, my eyes go directly to this peak because it's one of my favorite trails of all time. But if you're not from here, you might not even notice that peak. And if you're from a place that doesn't have mountains, maybe you'll see these mountains as massive and beautiful and formidable. Or you might think they're just not that interesting. So what is accurate? Are these mountains big or small? Are they trivial or formidable? At night, my kids often get scared. And when I go in there to talk to them, they share their worries and their fears. And the thing is most of them are not real. And almost all of them are entirely impossible, but no amount of explaining my perspective on reality will help. No amount of that will remove the reality of their monsters. As adults, have we really grown out of this? Or is our personal reality similarly reflective of our own fears, worries, and insecurities and life experience, or lack of life experience? Maybe we've just traded the monsters under our bed for the monsters in our minds, like the fear of failure or rejection or of not being enough. Funny thing is it's easy to see someone else's monsters and see right through them as just figments of their imagination. But when it comes to us and our monsters, similar to my kids, no amount of explaining seems to remove those monsters from our reality. No amount of someone else's logic can fully quiet the fearful noise inside us. We may call our fears being rational or mature or being realistic, but really we're just scared kids inside grown-up bodies, defending the borders of reality shaped more by fear than by fact. Thomas Nagel famously said that there's no such thing as a view from nowhere. What he meant is that pure objectivity, pure objective reality without personal bias is likely impossible. When I signed up for the half marathon recently, I was filled with the excitement of potential. But there were other people who didn't sign up because they saw 13 miles as impossible. So, which reality is real? Is 13 miles exciting potential, or is it impossible? If reality shifts based on perspective, then we are confronted with an interesting dichotomy. The dichotomy being either everything is real or nothing is. The reality that my son experiences when he's getting ready for bed of the monsters in his room and in his mind are just as real as my experience, even though my experience may be more rational. I mentioned the term or the concept naive realism earlier. Well, there are a lot of people that take the side of naive realism, but it's called direct realism. Direct realism says that our experience, our personal point of view is useful because it gives us a reasonable way to navigate life. The supporters of direct realism argue that our perspective, our lived experience, is useful and a useful tool to navigate reality. So maybe the dichotomy that I presented earlier is actually a false dichotomy. Maybe this should be a both and approach, where we can use our perspective, our point of view, while we understand that our perspective and everyone else's perspective is uniquely flawed, that every point of view has bias. And as we recognize that, we can try to live a life closer to reality without completely giving up our own experience. Because here's the thing. Each of our realities is uniquely created based on our own life experience and especially the things that we fear. So pick your fears. Think about the fears that you have in your life. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of the unknown, fear of chaos, fear of exclusion or rejection, fear of being forgotten. So when we have that fear, we build up our walls of certainty. We keep the fear and the chaos on the other side of that wall. But if we took courage and allowed the walls to crack and slowly took down the wall so that we could stare the abyss of fear in the face, then we slowly start to wake up. When you wake up, you realize how long you were asleep to reality, like the allegory of Plato's cave. You begin to realize how long you were reacting to mere shadows that you mistook for actual substance. When you wake up, you begin to see how your reality was created and your priorities will rearrange themselves. You begin to judge others less quickly and less harshly. You soften your judgments, you soften as a person, and you lead with more grace, with more understanding. But the cycle continues. You're never fully awake. You're like the asymptote that you learned about in school, where it's like the line that comes down and then slowly gets closer and closer to zero but never reaches. You never are fully awake. And then there will be moments where you thought you were getting close, and you will wake up and you will realize that you were approaching a whole different number. You were not approaching zero. You were not approaching objective reality. There's a whole another step down, closer to reality. And so maybe, if we allow ourselves to look closely, maybe we can realize that we are not as rational as we think we are. Maybe the most honest thing we can do is admit that we are all scared children in grown-up bodies, just trying to make sense of a world that no one truly sees clearly. I don't know. I would love to know your thoughts on this. I would love to know your thoughts on the allegory of Plato's cave and on reality itself, whether you are a more direct realist where you think that our lived experience is more useful than not, or whether you think that everything in reality is just an illusion. Anyways, I hope this was interesting or thought-provoking at a minimum. If it was, I hope you'll stick around and I'll catch you in the next video. All right, for running gear today, we've got an Ogden-made hat, just a local company. They're awesome. And then I don't know what the brand is, the sunglasses. I've got Rabbit running kind of their sun hoodie with a Solomon long sleeve underneath it. And then Solomon running shorts. They're a couple years old. I don't know what version or whatever they are. And then the flip mitts on my hands because it was a little chilly this morning. And then I have Features running socks and the new Hoka Clifton 10s. I will be doing a review on those soon, so stick around for that.